Welcome to the Purple Rock Survivor podcast. I'm John, my co-host is Andy, and as we record on this Black Friday, we are giving you the greatest deal of all, our thoughts on 2 episodes of Survivor, absolutely free. I only wish I were as drunk as Brett right now.
Yeah, everything must go. The prices are set to move here. It was a little late coming, but I'm going to say worth the wait.
Do you guys have Black Friday in Canada?
We actually do now, yeah, because what would happen is nobody would shop in Canada. They would just try to shop through the internet or go across the border. So Canadian retailers are finally like, fine, here's minuscule discounts too, because all our stuff is more expensive than yours in the first place.
Well, anyway, I won't go into the old Black Friday deals. Let's talk about the episode.
If we have to. But no, I'm sure this is fascinating.
Only because with 2 episodes, there's actually a lot to talk about this week.
And frankly, even if we just had one, if we just had the first half of this episode, that'd be a pretty good episode of Survivor. We'd have plenty to talk about. If we just had the second half, that would be one of the greatest episodes of Survivor ever. 2 together, I'm still it's too soon to say this is my favorite episode of all time, but I'm going to go ahead and say this might be my favorite episode of all time.
That is high praise. I am not ready to go there.
No, I honestly, it was during it when I was watching, I was like, this might be my favorite episode of Survivor. And then they screwed it all up with a stupid Black Rock.
Oh, man, I'll say this. It's possible because, the visible light spectrum, it can be a tricky thing. Maybe it's purple. Jeff's eyes are old. We don't know his baby boomer eyes. May see it as black, but, our younger Gen X eyes or even a millennial eye might see it as more of a purple thing.
Yeah, Jessica tweeted out a picture of it, and it's definitely black. Like, why do they hate us? Why? Well, all we do is give and give for the show. Would it really be so hard to go back to what it always was so that somebody out there would be like, hey, what's this Purple Rock on Survivor stuff, Mr. Google Machine?
Hey, at the very least, could we send Jessica like $5 and have her take a Sharpie to it and color it purple?
It's possible. I mean, she did get short about $1 million, so she needs a bit, right?
Yeah. She could use some cash. Hey, there's Black Friday deals to be had. She might need some spending money.
That's right. But, we're talking about Black Rocks on Black Friday. Should we keep mentioning, even though nobody else will be listening to this on Black Friday. You are not obviously as high as me because I'm, way over the moon right now. But that was awesome, right? That was an awesome episode of Survivor.
Yeah, I'll give you that. Like, the second episode, dropped the hammer. The first episode was good, but the second episode was great. We had one of our commenters, Prom King, mentioned that he ropes his family and friends into watching it every year, like a family tradition when they all get together, even though they haven't watched the rest of the show. And it's really nice that, if you have that kind of tradition to get this level of an episode, that's a really cool thing to show to people who don't generally watch Survivor. I have a feeling that they probably were intrigued, at least interested in watching.
Yeah, and I'm not big on the week-to-week predictions game, if anybody's been keeping score. But the one thing I said in this week's prediction post that absolutely proved true is, do not expect this to be 2 lame episodes smashed together. Some people say, oh, they're just going to burn off 2 simple votes. No, this isn't a double vote. This is 2, cycles of Survivor that happen to fall on the holiday. And it doesn't have, it's not like they we're going to start on September or whatever so that this one comes there. No, this is when they happen to go. And it was amazing. And last year at this time, we also had 2 really great episodes. So now I think Thanksgiving, that's when the hotness comes.
Yeah. And I think specifically for this, it worked out really well that between the first and the second episode, you got to see how quickly the game shifted. Because in the first episode, we see Zeke choosing to align with David over Chris. And then 3 days later, they're gunning for us. We don't even have to wait a week to see it. We were watching it and it looks like it just happens immediately.
Yeah. Come back from commercial and it's all come undone. We go from the amazing David Winters edit to, hey, maybe not David so much. Getting past generalities, I think we probably should start at the end because, man, that tribal council, though.
Oof. They've had a couple good tribal councils. I mean, I think just in general, the show is getting a lot more geared towards exciting tribal councils. I think it's something that they push. But wow, that one was pretty good. You had the Hannah and Adam whispering thing. Whispering at tribal council has just become a thing. I did enjoy though, like Brett and Sunday leaning in on it, like, huh? What you guys talking about over there?
Yeah, I gotta say, I don't know why they were whispering. What was that about? Like, if Hannah was whispering to somebody else, but it's like, haven't you two figured out what you're doing by now? Like, you're the two that talk to each other, right?
Yeah, I don't know. Were they trying to sniff out where the vote might be going? I really don't get what they might have been saying there.
Yeah, and I gotta say, like, I wonder, well, as it was happening, it's like, could this screw everything up for them? Because it's certainly making Jessica a little nervous. It could have made David nervous. Like, maybe David's like, okay, I'm not going to play my idol for you if you're still deciding. Like, what's to talk about here? We came here to vote for Zeke. You should know that. You told me that Adam was going to. Maybe they even talked to Adam themselves. So, yeah, that was weird. And, far be it for me to point out possibly that, Hannah isn't exactly the best at tribal council, but that right away, that was a little weird, and it's probably gotten lost because so much more stuff happened.
Yeah, like you said, though, that just sends a bad signal. Like, you're supposed to be coming in there as a strong group, trusts built amongst yourselves, and, if you're whispering, maybe it's totally innocuous, but, it's a paranoid situation, especially someone like David might be like, oh, okay, what's happening right now?
Yeah, he should have thought at that point, oh man, I better play the idol for myself. And then another thing is, like, weren't they supposed to be going in there making Zeke think that they were on his side? Clearly, I'm guessing that didn't happen. Well, especially when she's asking later, like, what's the plan? Like, didn't they tell you?
Yeah, probably a good sign that you're not in on the plan if you have to ask what it is.
It's like, what do they think you're going in there to do? And I think, by judging by the overall testiness that was going on, I think all of the subterfuge that people planned on going to tribal council with was out the door. I think everybody knew who was on what side, maybe with the possible exception of, like, an Adam or a Will, I don't know. But I think, yeah, just the way that they were geared up, people knew that this was us versus them, and no more than anybody else but Brett. Brett was ready to fight.
Yeah, I mean, Brett, and then to an extent Zeke as well. Like, I don't know if Brett was just nursing a wicked hangover and he just had to snap at people. He just seemed to be really tired of David, and David's consistent woe is me, pity me act. It's not really an act. It's just who David is. But I think that Brett, and to maybe the same extent even Zeke, were just like, no, we're not having it. And they didn't really sell it well to the, to the point that David was like, well, what the hell is this personal attack thing going on? Like, what is this? And that would have been a good opportunity for them to walk it back, which they might have, and we just didn't see it. But, I think what they were trying to do is put it in everybody else's head. Like, all right, guys, you see, this is David's act, right? He's trying to get our sympathy and our pity. Like, I think they were trying to pull people to their side, but I don't think they did a good job of it.
I do think it was, the David comments specifically were an expression of, exasperation, because they are now opposed to him. They're geared up. They're ready to go. Zeke probably has a good idea that his neck is on the line tonight. And yeah, it's just like, why aren't you guys seeing this? This isn't just, the friendly nerd that we were all nearly in tears for 3 days ago. Like, this guy is, a player. He's the one that blindsided Brad a couple times. So I think it was just frustration. If there was any kind of plan, I don't think it was. I think it was, people amped up, emotions running high, and they finally just snapped. Because, that wasn't actually the first time Brett snapped at that tribal council. He snaps at Hannah for trying to, or I guess it was David trying to push Hannah's line that he first snapped, right?
I think he eventually snaps at Ken, too.
And that's actually a continuation of an earlier thread. Way back when Ken was waxing poetic about, the beauty of language and vinyl,
mm-hmm.
Brett was rolling his eyes like, I gotta get a lot of this guy. And I think this is who Brett is. He isn't here for all your namby-pamby talk, and he's not all interested in trust clusters and whatever. Let's do this. Let's get together. Let's vote. It's me against you. Why are we even pretending? So, I don't know if there was a lot of strategy. I think he was a frustrated man. And I think that's also what happened with Zeke. And I know a lot of people did not take kindly to, Brett and Zeke especially's line of attack on David. How did you feel about that?
I mean, it was a heat of the moment type thing. Like, I'm not going to say like, oh, they're the worst. Like, they could have definitely done a better job of it. And I get that they were probably very frustrated. And we don't know what prompted that, but they probably could have, maybe even did, walk it back. Just, like I said, it wasn't a good look for them.
Yeah, and I think some people were like, oh, no, that's terrible jury management. Yeah. It was a human reaction to a high-stress situation. And I gotta say, Zeke especially, I get it. Like, you don't get to be somebody who has, like, this, wonderfully snarky sense of humor that can say these great lines, to us in confessionals and maybe probably makes other trimates laugh with, the way you can, snark on people and find little things and you say it in a way and it's funny. Well, the flip side is, it also means that you're kind of somebody who can find the cruel things to say and think about people. And usually, you don't, right? You know the line. You don't say those things. But when you get a little heated, you do. And I'm using the you, but this is me. I do this all the time. I mean, not all the time with other people because, frankly, I don't tend to get emotional with other people. But, if you ever want to talk to my wife, sure. I probably say things that I regret. The good news is eventually, I get to, take it back. If I'm smart enough to remember to take it back. But that's all I think that is happening. It's like, oh, boy, bad strategy, bad jury management. No, like Zeke is probably, seen through David. Does it mean that he doesn't believe any of David's emotion are real? No. But there's also some other stuff to it. David doesn't get to be this cuddly little underdog when he's trying to take over the game. And at that exact moment, Zeke was tired of it. And I think what was most telling about it was less about oh, you're going to cry. That was a bad look. But the whole, is this not part of your story? Yeah, he had him nailed with that one.
Oh, yeah. And that was the thing that I was like, ooh, that it sounded exactly like what you were saying. Like that's something that he's thought in his head and just hadn't said. And then at that moment, he was like, oh, okay, this is bothering me too much. I'm just going to throw it at him.
Yeah. And it's one of those, maybe even after it leaves your mouth. Although probably maybe if he's like me, maybe not exactly after he leaves his mouth. But when you look, you walk back, it's like, damn it. That's one of those things you think, not the things you say. Or even sometimes you don't even 100% mean it. It's just you attack to win. And sometimes you find that level that's like, that's the one that's going to hurt. It's not a good human trait, but it's a human trait. And for me personally, I am more forgiving of people having human moments in this show. And then, actually, I was going to say and in life, but no, I hate human moments in life.
Right, exactly. That's a totally different situation.
But it's like, this is high stress. Like, I think everybody knew going in that, the rubber's going to hit the road tonight. I think they probably even anticipated the likelihood that this was going to be a tie if they can do the math, right? So I think everybody was nervous that they were going home, other than Jay.
Yeah, and like I said, I think in the history of Survivor, this doesn't crack the top 20 of things that people have said to each other.
Yeah, and then like everybody was thinking, oh man, Zeke's now doomed for the jury. Tyson told somebody who just got rocked out to go sit over there and, enjoy themselves. Like,
exactly.
That person voted for him, I believe. So, yeah,
and honestly, I think that David could eventually vote for Zeke too. I think, Zeke is the type of personality that he would just say like, sorry, I took it too far there, David, but
Oh, I think easily David would vote for Zeke because that would be the closest thing he would get to voting for himself, which is exactly why the two of them were, viewing the other as the threat. That's me.
I think there's one other person that might be. Well, actually, no, I take that back because she's not remotely a player.
Exactly. Yeah, I think, and there's actually a secret scene that David views Hannah very much as a kindred spirit, like that she's the 22-year-old female version of him, that she says things he's, but doesn't mean that he would respect her game. He sees Zeke as playing the game he's playing, and that's honestly when I said that this might be my favorite episode of all time. It came after the editing sequence of each of them in confessionals laying out how they were going to attack the other one and how it was this just big chess match. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's the stuff. That's the stuff that, strategy-based me. Like, one of my favorite episodes before this is, Fiji's It's a Turtle. And that's because it's one side coming with a strategy on this side, and another one counter strategy, and then the counter to the counter. So when the two best narrators on this season, hands down, are sitting there explaining all of their moves and their counter moves to us, oh, that's the stuff.
Yeah, and I think the nice thing is that it's David and Zeke. It's so weird that these would be the masterminds for both sides. These are the people that are moving the pawns around.
Yeah, well, no, absolutely. These are not exactly the most likely candidates. I mean, I think we had an idea that Zeke could be a major force, just
Sure.
because, frankly, force of personality they came forward with. But it's still atypical. So yeah, I love it. Getting back to Tribal Council though, another great moment that leads into, probably some discussion is, Sunday. She pulled off a big move.
Sunday, Sunday, Sunday. I love it. She roped Adam in so hard. And, I mean, you could maybe give some credit to Brett there, but I honestly think it's because it came from Sunday and she projects this, like, honest person vibe. Like, I'm sure she's got, the pastor thing and the mom thing, and everybody thinks like, oh, Sunday's so nice and doesn't come off as deceitful. So when it's her that's saying like, guys, the plan is Ken, I think that sells it really, really well. And she's not going to get a lot of credit for that because it's like a very subtle move, but she deserves it. That was really good.
Yeah, and it's not like she's instantaneous. No hesitation, unlike somebody on the show who hesitates to give answers. No, it was quickly, while Ken is talking, Hannah's like, who is it? Who is it? Just quickly, dead on, Ken.
Right.
Yeah, look, a lot of people are dogging Adam for what he did, and obviously that's fair. He totally screwed up. And, I shouldn't be anyone to criticize people from going after Adam, as, I made a whole podcast about it, but I get how that would trick you coming from her the way it did, because it was just, instantaneous, matter of fact. And, we praised Jay a few weeks ago for being stone cold in the face of accusation. That was stone cold what she just did.
I had predicted last week we were going to get the episode of Sunday or episodes of Sunday. And I was, at least in this, 5-minute segment, I was correct.
Yeah, that 1 second she owned it all. And she won the round for her side. So, we haven't had a lot of opportunity to talk about Sunday, but I do think it was really important to highlight that because again, I don't know if it actually saved them because let's get into the second part. David and his idol play. Obviously playing it for Ken was a mistake. But do you think he was going to play it for Hannah? Did that actually affect the game?
Well, I'll say this. He probably wasn't playing it for Ken, right?
No, he absolutely was not playing it for Ken.
Any reason he had to suspect it being Ken? I think the intent he had when he stood up was that it was going to be himself or Hannah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Ken probably didn't even enter his mind. Maybe the few times that Ken isn't on his mind. So yeah, no, Adam definitely put it on there. I get why he would believe Adam because, he's like, these people were saying it Ken. And frankly, like, maybe it should have been Ken, right? Like, that's not like a huge leap to go after, which again is why it's so good for what Sunday did. She picked a plausible target, although it could have just been fortuitous because Ken was the person talking at that moment and not sitting near them. But, so I understand why he would do that, but I actually believe he was playing it for Hannah. And it kind of goes back to what we were discussing in the first part. Maybe, if you're thinking about playing it for Hannah at the beginning and now she's whispering to somebody that she's changed her mind, it's like, you know what? I'm just going to keep me safe. Because he walks up to Jeff. Hannah actually says, wait, and then does nothing because talking and forming full thoughts at Tribal Council is very difficult for her. He struggles to get out of his pocket. And then Adam says, hold up. No, bro. And then he goes all the way back. Like when I first watched it, it was like, okay, he handed Brooks the idol and walked away. I'm guessing that means him. Usually you say, I'm playing the idol for myself or whatever. I think he went up there to play it for himself. So I don't think, good on Sunday just in case. Bad on Adam for buying it in that scenario. But actually, I don't know if it would have mattered. I don't think he was playing it for Hannah.
So as a counter to that, I initially agreed with you. I figured it had to be himself. But the fact that he was so willing to give it up at the mention of Ken's name makes me think that maybe not. I'm gonna leave a window open. Like, there's like a 25% chance that he was initially going up there to play it on Hannah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I can't rule it out. It'll be interesting. I'm sure that will be a question that comes up once David's doing, his post-game press. If not in that moment because other crazy things happen, I'm sure he's the type of guy who'll be doing like a 2-hour podcast at some point. So it's possible. Like I say, so why would you play? Like, would you have believed Hannah when she was coming up to you and it's like, the vote's now for me? Because she was absolutely right, obviously. But it's kind of like, oh, why is it for you? And also, like, you're just a nervous Nelly who will always think that you're on the chopping block because, you're me. And I always feel that way.
Well, I think the one thing that probably helped swing that idol play is the fact that it was Ken. Like, I think David views Ken and Jessica as his two closest allies, and he needs to protect them over anybody else. Mm-hmm. So because it was Ken's name that came up, and it wasn't Adam, it wasn't Hannah, it was someone that he's just viscerally felt like, oh, wait, no, it can't be that person. I have to protect him. I think that's what ended up getting the idol play on Ken.
Yeah. I do like, and I apologize now, I can't remember what commenter, but it's just like, how Hannah would explain to David why she thinks the vote's going for her. Oh, well, because when I went up to Zeke to set the trap for him, I totally basically let him know that I had flipped on him already. Like, God damn it, what good are you?
Yeah, he completely saw right through my act because it was really transparent. So, now the vote's going my way instead.
Oh, man, you had one job. I mean, not that David can really criticize too much because he screwed it all up by jumping the gun and going after Zeke.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know that he necessarily jumped the gun. I think it was just that he was a little too willing to talk to some people that maybe weren't 100% with him. Like if he had, pushed that plan out to Ken and Jessica and then said, hey guys, when do you think it's a good time to act on this? Just putting it out to Brett and Sunday and saying, here's my timeline for getting out Zeke, not the way to go about it.
Yeah, no, and absolutely. And this is a continuation of a thread that's been on all season. That David approaches people too fast, too quickly with strategy right away, right? Like, our introduction to David is like, I trust you guys. I trust you. You and us. I'll never write your name down. It's like, oh, okay. And your name is, at the legendary summit, he said to Taylor, I'll flip on these guys right away. We're going to the end. That's the game. A few weeks ago we were like, should he have told Zeke about that idol so quickly? Like, it kind of feels like they just met. We did, theorize that was a scene out of order edit-wise, but
yes,
this seems to be the thing that David, for all of the, gameplay that people have been wanting to give him credit for of late, and, I would not necessarily excuse myself from that group, I do think he might just still be a little too jumpy and a little too strategy-based, whereas, maybe kind of ease into things. Feel it out. See if Brett is actually forgiving you. You did just vote against his interest again, the night before. The sun has not even fully come up, I believe. And yet still it was too late. But yeah, so I think he did jump the gun. If not targeting Zeke right away, definitely in, putting out that information so quickly. You need to, hold those cards back a bit. It's a process.
Right. At the very least, keep it to a Cold War level. And if Zeke is your eventual target, just start picking off the numbers so that he won't be able to defend himself when you do come for him.
Yeah, because that could be a way. You don't need necessarily Brett right away. If Zeke is, your ally, so to speak, because, again, like the night before he was, and he helped you vote out Chris, who, the night before that was also your ally. See how he feels about voting out Jay or Will or Adam, although it turns out he ended up needing Adam, but I think in his formulation to try and win Brett and Sunday, he wouldn't have. And if, you get a sense from Zeke that, he's trying, he's not comfortable with that and he's counter proposing with somebody else, then you have an idea that, the war is on. But yeah, I think I do think he jumped the gun. I think you view Zeke as a target. Absolutely. Because, he's the one that's playing the same game as you. And I actually think it's a good, rule of thumb to not be in the finals with somebody who can claim credit, the same kind of credit as you are. Unless, they can't claim quite as much. Man, yes, absolutely try to smooth things over with Bet and Sunday. Although I would suggest that it's going to be harder than one conversation. But just going all out in there, like, they were just successful the night before and everything went to heck. And I love that as soon as he's like, yeah, oh man, I did the wrong thing. I talked to Brett, and Jessica's like, oh, what'd you do that for?
Yeah, exactly. Like, at least she recognizes, oh, come on, David, really?
How do you not know that's a bad idea?
Us.
Yeah.
And speaking of bad ideas, let's talk about Hannah's discussion with Zeke for a minute, because wow, was that poorly played.
Oh god, she's the worst. I mean, she's not the worst. Actually, I find myself liking her more as each week goes on as a character, as a person. But that scene was possibly her masterstroke. It's hard to say because she is the person that it took 10 minutes to cast a vote, her very first vote. That's pretty bad. She is the person that hyperventilates whenever things get a little heated. Although she actually held it together this episode, so good on her for that. Just everybody's just begging, like, just say something. He's still there, right?
Oh, I mean, from reading the comments on our site, like, everybody was doing the exact same thing we were. Like, just acknowledge him. Say, yeah, oh, good point. Say anything. Anything. Just do not silently look up and away from him.
Yeah, it's like, it's because she could sense that he was trying to get at David. But play dumb. Be like, who's the most dangerous in this game? It's Jay. That's pretty easy. That's an easy answer. And it should be easy for her because she was the one that's be like, why are we doing this? Why aren't we going after Jay? So, say Jay. And then it's like, well, okay, well, Jay's immune, so it can't be him. It's like, okay, well, Brett, he wasn't voting with us. Just give him a name and then let him talk. That's how it goes, man.
Right, exactly. I don't know how, of the myriad of options that she had, she couldn't think of any. At the very least, if you can't think of the best answer, say, hang on, let me think. Give yourself a delay tactic, come up with the name, think of the least offensive name to him that you can.
Or how about this? Do what Jay did the week before with Sunday. No, you tell me. You don't even put it out there, because really, that was just a rhetorical device for Zeke so that he could say what he wanted to say.
Right. All of these things that we're suggesting, all better than what she did.
Yeah, and it's like, it's easy to say when you're out in the heat of the moment, but it's actually not that hard to actually say things to people when they're talking to you and lie. And he's like, maybe you'd be bad at lying. I suspect that even if she said a name, maybe she'd have a myriad of tells anyway. But, the biggest one is just be like, like, oh god, it was so bad. And I love, because, they're the followers of our site. They are the people they are. These poor bastards are still trying to push a narrative in which somehow this girl sits in front of tribal council and convinces them to award her $1 million.
Good luck.
Yeah, like, okay, it's like, yeah, sure, she's still a prominent member of the edit. She certainly has a way of getting there because, she looks like somebody you'd bring. But did you not just see her try to convince somebody of one easy job? And so, yeah, they're really gonna walk away from her just falling all over herself, hyperventilating, trying to hide as they ask her questions, because I don't know if people remember this, unless you are the person they came in there to vote for. Jurors don't tend to be very nice to you. No, she's gonna fall apart. Even if, in some miracle, they've come around and forgotten that she's the girl that took 10 minutes to vote and all these other things, they're like, yes, it's Hannah. Like, Amanda Kimmel will be cringing watching this girl at Final Tribal Council.
Between her and Adam, like, we should get them both in the final three, and then, whoever's against them, congratulations.
Yeah, it would just be playing prevent defense at that point.
Exactly. Just passing on your answers. Like, actually, I'm going to let Adam and Hannah answer these first.
Yeah, so I don't know how you watch that scene and just like, oh no, she still has a dark horse chance of winning. No. 0.
So instead, let's talk about the person that she was she was having that conversation with, Zeke, because Zeke also decided to make a move against David, not directly. Instead, he pointed the votes at Hannah after that conversation. And to her credit, at least, and again, very little credit because it's her fault, but at least she figured out that the votes were going to be steering her way because of her terrible conversation with Zeke. But Zeke is now essentially entering into war with David's alliance, which he says so in a confessional. Do you think he's moving too quickly?
I think it's the way it was presented. He was forced into jumping the gun based on the information Brett gave to him. He was clearly trying to set up David as the next target because both of them just, they're worried about the other one because they know the other one is doing and thinking what they are thinking. It's actually pretty funny that, they're not targeting Ken. Like, how is Ken this invisible nothing? Like, that, he's like, usually he's the obvious target, but no. Zeke sees David and in him and vice versa. But I think he was trying to do the thing of setting up David for a fall down the road. Unless there was an opportunity to strike, because he did mention the idol thing. But, he's winning over more allies, getting Brett and Sunday back on his side. Probably plans to win Jay and Will over. But I don't know if he was going to target David right away. But once, Brett's like, yeah, David's talking about voting you out. I get it. Maybe a cooler player would be like, okay, Mr. David, you try that, but we'll do this. But I think most people would be like, they're trying to get me out. I'm going to get you out.
Right. And I think at that point, Zeke felt like he could amass a certain amount of votes and he had to strike while he could. And if it was only enough votes to force a tie, that's the best he could do. He's got to go in with that.
Yeah, and to his credit, he is trying to talk to somebody whom he thought he had an alliance with in Hannah, not the person he just betrayed the night before. Right. Although he was able to actually get that person. That said, the betrayal from David is worse than the betrayal from Zeke, because it's like the third time that David's done that. So yeah, I criticize it more from David's point of view than Zeke, because I think Zeke's was a little reactionary. That said, targeting Hannah instead, one, I get it. You can't go at David directly now, because the only way you could have gone at him directly is if you were surprising him. And clearly, Hannah's running over there to give him the information. But I think he changed the target to Hannah, not because she was the greatest strategic target, but because he was pissed at her.
Yeah, and as an added bonus, it was the thing where I don't know if David's willing to play an idol on Hannah.
Yeah, and some people actually put out the strategy, and I feel it was an emotional decision. I don't know if Zeke thought all this through.
It can be two things.
Oh, yeah. But that detangling Adam from Hannah would result in Adam being a free agent that he could win, because, Adam is basically his longest relationship in this season. That said, I don't know if Adam's the partner you want in all of this.
He's the partner you deserve.
You'd be like, the vote is for, Brett. But yeah, so I think it was an emotional decision, but yeah, ultimately it wasn't necessarily a bad one. I mean, it almost worked. And I don't think much would have changed. But frankly, Ken would have been a bad one, I suppose, but then Sunday wouldn't have said it, so, It's just weird that, I think, if you're going at David, you should probably take out one of his main allies, not this flaky new one that you could probably still win over at some point.
Yeah, I think just at that point he felt like he'd already lost her to David's side anyway.
Yeah.
So why not? Because you're not going to trust her again. That bridge has been burnt, basically.
Yeah. But I do think it was a bit of a fit of pique. He was just pissed at her. And whatever. Sure. Not everything, as much as we'd like everything to be a strategy in a vacuum, it's not. Emotions dictate things, and, if you had to take somebody out. There's also the idea that, she might be the least likely for him to play an idol on, and that was a good read. He didn't, so.
Yes.
We should probably talk about the person who did go home. We kind of skipped over that.
Yeah, poor Jessica, man.
Bad beat.
Because, it really was. And she had the chance, and they even showed it, that she was considering, well, wait, guys, I'm not so positive about this, revote thing, and we'll go to rocks and blah, blah, blah. So she knew to be afraid, because once you get to the stage where you have to make it unanimous, that's going to be a really hard sell, because you're going to have to convince David. And I don't think David's going to cave.
Yeah, no, David needs to win at this point. Otherwise, it's him next, right? He no longer has idol protection. Clearly, they were coming after him. So, it's win now or lose tomorrow. for her, she could think, well, like, I don't want to go out to save Hannah. She isn't even, like, my main ally. Like, I don't know what level of relationship they have. They only met at the merge, right?
Yep.
Yeah, she probably likes her enough and, wants the numbers, but it's like, maybe lose one to stay and play for another day. So, should she have flipped, though? Like, was this a critical error?
I'm assuming, much like me, you're going to say, hell yes, she should have flipped, because I just get the read that those alliances are not that solid. I mean, we saw just in this episode how fluidly, like, Zeke realigned with Brett and Sunday. There's pieces that are moving it all the time. At the very least, Jay should be considered a free agent.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like Jay is locked into anything. Will doesn't necessarily seem locked into anything. There's still, like, pieces that can be moved around, and I personally would have been like, whatever, I'm staying in this game 3 more days and I'll figure it out then.
Yeah, especially if you're Jessica, but I'll say the counter to that, though, is like 3 days ago they were targeting her, right? And the people that were targeting her are still there. But the flip side of that is, like, 3 days ago they were targeting you, and all of a sudden you're like, okay, the game is changing that fast, just as you were saying. So I'll say, like, if Jessica, if you're listening, don't regret this for your rest of your life. I do believe that, they were going to get you anyway. It seemed like the game was out to get her at some point. Like
the Final Destination thing.
Yeah, that was, I believe, Ray on our comments, and that was perfect. That she escaped death through the most unusual of means. David playing an idol for her when she had already flipped on him. Yeah, so that it was just like, you're gonna die, and we'll just find the way to do it. And The Rock is the game speaking under the most, it's either that or evacuation. So, it's a good thing that didn't happen to her. So, like, I get it. Like, I think there's the argument that because that other side seemed to view her as a bigger target than, say, Ken, this is weird. Maybe you just win now or lose later. But the flip side is, like, I don't think the lines were drawn in the sand here.
Yeah, and, I mean, obviously, to her credit, she was very willing to go unanimous. But, at that point, there's nothing you can do. It's sealed then.
Well, and it's not just David. She has to flip Ken, too. And Ken has no motivation to flip. He actually has a good relationship with Hannah, as evidenced by the first scene in the entire episode. Which, for people fighting back and forth, I think that was about the relationship with Hannah. I don't think there's any winners edit things to go on here. It wasn't about Hannah's story or Ken's story. I think it's explaining why Hannah makes the choice she does. She feels really connected to this group in a way she didn't with the other group.
Also, Ken is really handsome, and why not talk about it?
Absolutely. I was like, get it. You know what? You missed, you can't make the shot unless you shoot it. Just take the shot and see what happens, Hannah.
That's what I'm saying. We all would have done the same thing.
Yeah, I'm sure you'd make an excellent stepmom. But, so, it's one of those things she shouldn't regret, but I bet she does because of what we're saying. There was probably fresh opportunities. But at the same time, like, I don't know. Maybe there wasn't really opportunities there were opportunities for her to survive, not just this vote, for future votes. Maybe that kind of weak-willed response would not get you the win. Right? It's not like the jury respected Cochran, right?
Right. Yeah, and she may have had a hard time because after she flipped there, maybe her strongest allies are no longer her strongest allies.
Yeah,
but
so then she
I have a feeling she could have smoothed it back over with David and Ken.
Yeah, David and Ken, I think she could have smoothed back over. I suppose the counter argument is apparently there's just no winning over Brett and Sunday. Apparently she just crossed a Rubicon and it was never going there. And I think that could lead us back to the first episode, which is, like, why is Chris still holding this grudge?
It does seem like a weird thing to fixate on, right? Like Sunday flipped on him too, and he doesn't seem to have any sort of beef with her at this point. Like, totally fine, totally willing to work with Sunday, but both he and Sunday are like, no, we gotta get Jessica. I really don't get what the impetus for that was, because again, I don't see why it's her over anyone else.
Yeah, and I get it when you're on Gen X Beach. It actually worked, right? Well, I mean, it didn't completely work because of what David did, but they were able to rally against Jessica and get all the votes on her, and that saved them, right? By all means, Brett and Chris should have been the next targets. But yeah, it's like, dude, how do you see her as the biggest threat in the game right now? And, even if you think she's a big threat, obviously we, can only see edit based, and somebody like Jessica isn't going to be featured heavily in the edit because, she goes out relatively, before the end game and goes out in a random way that doesn't want us, the show doesn't want us to feel like the best player in the game just got rocked out. But, like, being 6 Gen X strong is going to be much safer and better for you than any potential threat Jessica poses because she voted out Paul so many years ago.
Yeah, like I said, I don't really get what that was. Maybe there was just more to that story than we ever saw. But, man, it just seems like something you could maybe have gotten past.
Yeah, and I think what it is this is pure hypothesis, but I feel like Sunday and Lucy felt that she lied to them. That the whole Paul talking about forming a men's alliance was just Jessica being duplicitous and working her game, and oh my god, she's such a strategist, she flipped us all. That's how dangerous she was. She's just making stuff up. No, because that's not what happened. She relayed the truth of what happened, I wonder if when they were actually watching it, they felt, bad for all the bad things they thought about her. Yeah, I mean, like, it might have been the wrong read that Paul wasn't actually, saying what he was saying, but that information was true. And it's just like, you guys acted on it. In fact, you acted on it with, from our perspective, very little prodding. But now it's all like, oh, it's her. I never would have flipped if it wasn't for her. We had this amazing 6-person alliance, and Jessica destroyed it all. And if we need to destroy our entire game together, we will. For Paul!
And again, to Sunday's credit, she somehow absolved herself of blame with that whole situation. Like, oh, just pointed the finger at Jessica. It's all Jessica's fault. And suddenly Chris and Brett are like, yeah, you're right. It was Jessica's fault. And we're totally cool with you. We're going to be allies now until the end of the game.
Yeah. So do you think Chris could have won if he would have just let that go?
It certainly would have helped his chances, right? Like, I think there was a reason to have worked with Jessica. If you want to, get your revenge angle, as we were talking about the revenge thing earlier with Zeke, like if you're going to let your emotions dictate your game, do it later on when you take her out.
Yeah, the phrase is, it's best served cold, means you let it go cold, That's
what I'm saying. Once you get down to the point where you have to flip on your alliance, flip on her, because apparently you have this deep-seated anger from, a month ago at that point. But yeah, it definitely helped submarine his game that he got so fixated on voting her out at a weird time.
Yeah, I mean, like, a guy like Chris is always going to be a target, and thus, there's a path that, involves risk, right? You probably need to win some immunities, that sort of thing. But there were 6 Gen Xers, man. There were 6 of them. There was 4 Millennials. It shouldn't have been that hard to do. Or is it 5 Millennials?
I don't know, but there
was more Gen Xers, right?
Because, well, you mentioned Chris being a target post-merge, and we kind of talked about why Ken isn't being targeted earlier. I really do think that the post-merge challenges being so seemingly random and carnival game-like, I think that's finally starting to pay dividends, and people have stopped viewing someone like Chris as like a post-merge challenge beast, because the challenges aren't that way anymore. Like, he's not necessarily going to win these sorts of challenges.
Yeah, no, he hasn't been a contender for any of the challenges. I don't think he's had like a top half finish in any of them, as far as I know. At least not the top 4. So yeah, it's possible, but I mean, to the flip side, they did vote him out, right? So there was probably some nervousness, but maybe that was more due to his, social connections to Brett, to Sunday.
You know who will know how he finished in challenges? Jeff Pittman at True Dork Times. Shout out.
He can tweet us right now. But yeah, it's just like, I just think, he had the connection to Brett and Sunday, who clearly, I don't think they were ever going to flip on him. It would be one of those scenarios where they kept thinking, oh, we should probably flip on him, but they just wouldn't feel comfortable doing it due to some mixture of, loyalty and friendship, but also, not wanting to lose the protection that Chris offers. Because I do believe both of them are, whether due to circumstance or due to their own natural inclination, are flying under the radar. And I actually think they're doing really good at it. Like, I think they're actively managing under the radar really well. Like, the way Brett just flipped like that with Zeke, that was masterful. Like, that's, better than Natalie, in San Juan del Sur. Just like, oh no, it's cool. I was going to get him out sometime anyway. Yeah. It's how they were able to survive when they were on, Icabula. So I think he had them. And then, obviously Ken is a threat. But then your, challenges against Jessica and David, I don't know. I mean, I guess David won one, so I shouldn't be talking too much. But I feel like he had a path there, but just couldn't get over this Jessica thing. Although I suppose the argument is, David did go after him. I don't know if that was because he was targeting Jessica or David had already made that plan.
Yeah, who knows? Speaking of David, he, as you mentioned, he won a challenge.
I know.
It's part of this magical growth arc that he's got going. How are you enjoying the David growth arc?
Along with the challenge, and prior to that, you had the reward challenge, the big scene that happened there, which has somewhat does spark some controversy on our site. I actually think it was touching, what he, at the reward challenge, but I do think it's a mix. I don't think people are wrong, shout out Sharkules and others, that he was doing it to engender sympathy. But I think what the gameplay, it could go beyond gameplay and just more like, this is how David manages like social relationships through, putting himself down. There's many people who do that sort of thing. Frankly, this would be the shocking revolution. I probably used to do that. And eventually I decided, no, it's more fun to be arrogant. So I went the other way with it.
Yep. Same here. As you get older, you realize arrogance is more fun.
Yeah, and it's just like, nobody cares. People will just think that you're fishing for compliments anyway, so just take them. It's easier to fish.
Make them yourself.
That's right. I'll just throw a net out in the water instead of hoping somebody delivers me one. But, so I think that was, just him, trying to curry favor or just do his natural shtick. But I think his reaction to their reaction, that was genuine. That was a human being overwhelmed by something in the moment, probably something that he's rarely, if ever, experienced in his life. And I thought it was genuinely touching. I thought people's reaction to him was warm and touching. And I think that's another reason why I ranked this episode so highly. Yeah, we had the strategy and the counterplay of, and the two great narrators going at it. Cause Zeke's my favorite in this season, and it's not close. But there were some great human moments as well. And that was the first one. So that was the start of, I guess David is winning. And then he wins a challenge. But I'm still not sure if this is a winner's edit so much as we struck gold with this fantastic character. Survivor creams their pants at growth arcs. I think especially this is like a Jeff Probst bugaboo. He loves the idea that his show is about more than just cutthroatness, and it's not like the other trashy reality shows. This is some place where people, form their society and grow and become something, and it's reflected in like the questions he asks at reunions and stuff.
It's the social experiment.
Exactly. So I think absolutely he's getting that arc, and I love that. Frankly, I imagine he's probably maybe even said it to other people, like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm growing so much, which is why Zeke, who is, I think, probably a very observant person, has been able to look at that and be like, yeah, I see where you're going, buddy. And that's where it came out of Tribal Council. But I don't necessarily think it means that he's going to win, especially since, things got a lot harder for him.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, I think Zeke is very right that David is coming to his own and is playing up the fact that he's coming to his own. Like he's, I think, almost trying to put himself down as a strategy so that later down the road when he's much more confident, as he's gotten more confident already, but if he can convince you that he's still not as confident as he really is, when he gets to the end, you're going to be like, wow, David really turned it around there when, he probably turned it around somewhere right around the merge.
Yeah, no, he's softening the ground for his final jury speech, which I have no doubt in my mind he's been practicing to himself at night. And I know that because I know of which I speak. Yeah, if anybody wonders how I can monologue on cue here, it's because I've thought about a lot what I'm going to say in this show, pretty much from when I'm done watching the episode. So yeah, I speak from what I know and I see it in myself there. Yes, he is thinking about what he's going to say and he's going to lay down the narratives of his growth. That I was just this guy, so scared of death constantly, blah, blah, blah. We see him working it out. He's like, going to the smaller clubs and shopping his material around and refine it in the confessionals already. So yeah, that is and if he knows kind of student of the show the way we are, and given that he writes for television, I suspect in this was he is. He knows the edit, loves the growth arc so much.
Yes, and speaking of narratives that the show's laying down, Adam got the letters.
He did, and again, that's a continuation. There was some great human moments, and we've laid into him, and frankly, I will continue to as long as he sucks. I am capable of feeling sympathy for somebody as a human, yet still saying when they suck at Survivor, because I think it's kind of unfair to only pick on the people we don't like.
Yeah, and here's the thing: if he turns it around and he suddenly does great things, we'll say, "Hey, look, Adam did great things." It's not like we just buy into this thing where, oh, he screwed up, so now we're going to hate him the rest of the season, and he's a terrible player at this game. When there's supporting evidence, we will use that
absolutely
to define how we see these players.
Like, I'm incredibly biased in some areas, but I still think I'm fair. If for no other reason that, I most easily called out on the things I say. But no, that was an affecting moment, and I think it's good for him. He is a person going through, tremendously difficult situation. And, some people have been very kindly about bringing that up, and I applaud them for that. I don't think it defends the mistakes he's made, because I think those mistakes are just more core to probably the kind of person he is. And another way of me recognizing who I am. But, he's more than just, a lousy Redditor who can't play Survivor. He is a human being going through some real stuff. And I like to see it.
Yeah, exactly. I was legitimately happy for him that he got those letters, and I can just imagine the effect that it's having on him. We've mentioned that he's got a whole lot of scenes where he's talking about, his mom's going through the cancer and everything. Probably in part because it's on his mind constantly. Like, he left behind his mom who has cancer, and I'm sure she encouraged him to go, but, it's probably going to weigh on him for the month that he's away.
Mm-hmm. I mean, like, things that I wouldn't even know about would weigh on me when I was out there. Like, oh my God, I wonder if everybody's okay. Like, he knows that everybody's not okay. So yeah, absolutely. And you're good for him. And, I think the capper on this is, so we had a great human scene with David, really, affecting scene with Adam. But I think the scene of the episode for me was Zeke and Brett at that reward.
Oh, hell yes. That was that, like, if they had built the season's theme around this, that was a legitimate generational difference. Like, they're talking about their experience, and Zeke's is wildly different. Like, this was an actual generational divide. Like, Brett has had experience keeping his sexuality to himself. Zeke is just like, screw it, I've always been out, whatever. And, watching this as what the show defines as a Gen Xer, like, I'm thinking, like, I went to my first lesbian wedding, like, a little less than a decade ago, and Don't Ask, Don't Tell was still a thing. Legalized marriage seemed like a ridiculous, far off, laughable possibility. And, it's less than 10 years later, completely different. So props to you millennials for helping bring along that change. But, like, there's a real generational divide here, and it was cool to watch that play out on the show and have them talk about their personal experiences.
Yeah, and it happened organically. Like, Zeke is enough of a pro that he would, probably mentioned it in his confessional. He's been good about, towing the line between, giving them what they want, but not going too far. But I think when Brett was talking about it, he wasn't trying to, as a Gen Xer or anything like that. Which, it's what they've all struggled with, because nobody's actually defining themselves as Gen Xers so much as somebody older. But he's saying, my generation, because it was different for him. He was growing up with it, and I thought it was beautiful, because it was Brett, right? And he wasn't being grandiose. It wasn't anything out of the, step out of who he was. It was just like, hey, you're not the only gay guy here, still matter of fact, the guy who's slightly goofy. It's easy to forget that amongst, being a funeral director and actually being gay, he's also, somebody who does stand up as a hobby, so he's kind of like, this guy, a Boston guy, whatever. But he had a real human moment there. And sure, it was a bit about the game and bonding experience with somebody, but there's a reason why he chose that person. And I have to imagine that it felt good, because he's not just coming out to, this millennial, more free sexuality, guy. He's coming out to America. Now, he's not closeted. he said that, the people who know, and nobody, it's fine, nobody cares. But it was a moment, and I think that's what, as much as, kind of gets back to what I said, how Probst likes that his show is more. This shows how it's more, because it was, just a genuine moment between people that they didn't interfere with. It wasn't quick cut with a bunch of stuff. It wasn't even promoted. It wasn't like a very special episode of Survivor, things get real. It was just two people talking about it matter-of-factly. Brett is a character that most of the people watching did not know he was gay.
Right. And a lot of the people that comment on our site did, because it had been in a secret scene earlier. I think it might have been in his bio or something like that. So we all knew, and there had been comments like, hey, is this ever going to get brought up on the show? Like, is it good that it's not getting brought up? Is it bad that it's not getting brought up? Trust the show. Look what they did with it. Like, that was the way to bring it up in the context of the show, as you said, totally organically. And what a great moment we got from this. The show is so well done.
Yeah, and we can be proud of the show for this. It has other issues. We've discussed them at length for this season. But this is the show whose very first star character was a gay man playing against type. And then this is a show, many years later in the America we're at on, the grandfather network of TV that just presented this as a natural thing that they are incredibly proud of. And Probst is love this scene. When they submit this for the Emmy and then never get nominated because somebody is more excited about, chairs that listen to music, they should feel proud about this episode. And,
Oh, but the chairs spin.
It's true. I shouldn't demean the chairs. I'm sure it's fantastic entertainment and just amazing editing. I mean, they go from camera 1 to camera 3. It's, oh my God. But this is a show that's never run away from this. There's still places they can go. And, God bless our commenters who've mentioned this. They haven't done this for women in the way they've done for men. But they were doing this 15 years ago when, people weren't doing this, and they're still doing it now in a completely non-exploitive way. If Brett wanted to talk about it, that was Brett's decision. And when he did. And it was great to see. And I gotta say, what is wrong with people that can't, watch something like that and no, that's wrong. It was just two humans connecting in a really unusual circumstance that they're competing against each other, but they still found that moment. And I don't know. I don't even know why I'm ranting, because nobody that needs to be ranted at will be listening to this, but I don't know how you watch that and not be moved by it. And I'm a robot who doesn't like humans.
I think we can at least take some solace in the fact that CBS's audience tends to skew, especially for this show, tends to skew a little older and more Midwestern. So this is a good thing that they're seeing this. Let them see that these are human beings with experiences and stories that maybe, if they can't necessarily relate to, they can at least understand and empathize with.
Absolutely, because I bet Brett was their favorite character, right? And Ken. Maybe Ken too. It's Ken. But, Brett was probably one of their favorites, right? He's this blue-collar guy, no nonsense and all this. And then there's oh, wait. So they're people too? It does not connect. So, I don't know. I loved it. And, that's also what helped elevate it. Again, everything but that stupid colored rock. I think one other person we need to talk about, is Jay, who wasn't a huge highlight of the episode, but man, he's still there, And was it a mistake to take the eyes off the ball? Before they're doing this, it's gotta be Jessica, it's gotta be Chris. It's Jay!
He's right there. I can understand why they moved the target off of Jay, because he's potentially useful to them for now. He actually might be a lot harder to take out later, and they don't really realize that. But I get it. Other battles need to be fought, which is great for Jay. This has dramatically increased Jay's position in this game.
Yeah, no, and obviously they couldn't vote for him right away after that amazing telephone tag where everybody finds out he has an idol. Again, this show also had one of the most humorous segments. This was fantastic.
So good.
I know it's too early, obviously, to say this is the best episode ever or one, but I'm telling you, you're gonna look back on this. It's and look, it had 2 hours, so it had some time. But there's been an hour and a half season, beginning or 2-hour finales that people rank highly. This is going to be up there. It had everything. But yeah, it's it should have been Will and him, man. Save all your petty stuff and all the wars that you still need to fight. The most dangerous guy is still there. And I think they were thinking, well, he's not as dangerous anymore. There's only 2 of them, and there's 3 of us, and 3 of them, and 3 of them. But, like, this guy can win. And, I know everybody told us that he completely screwed up his game and he could never be in a good position again. And, how can we even count him as a winner? Because the path for victory is so far away. You just saw it, folks. He was able to escape 1 vote without using an idol because people were fighting their own battles. Then he wins immunity. He still has an idol, and you can't split votes anymore. There's no trust anywhere. So I don't know when they go after Jay at this point. Like, I think he's got a ticket to the final 6.
Well, final 6. I thought you were going to go with finals. I was like, that's way too early.
No. I mean, obviously at some point that idol isn't going to protect him. But at this point, how do you attack him? He has the idol, and you can't split votes. There's no what group of people is going to be big enough to split votes until at least like 6 or 7.
Right. And I kind of wonder, and it's not really expressed in the show, and I think intentionally so, but we assume that Sunday tipped Jay off to where the vote was going, right? Yeah,
I mean, that's an assumption I had, because, him not knowing anything, okay, that's fine, but like picking out Jessica? And no, maybe he could sense it from the way that the tribal council was going, and that's when he decided not to play his idol. Because, Jessica was the one who did raise her hand, like, I feel like I did things that pissed people off or whatever. Like, the one that isn't him, for instance, or Adam. Those were the obvious ones. Maybe, Gen Xers aren't very good at hiding who they were targeting, but yeah, I kind of feel, and if she did, it's like, for one, that shows that saving Sunday and Brett might have actually been a pretty good move by Jay. I should just come out and say I told you so always, but we haven't yet.
I was trying to set you up for that, so I'm glad you finally got to it.
It's like, but your job Sunday was to get him to play that idol. Even if you don't want him to go home, you don't want him to have an idol, right?
Yeah, and I do kind of think that maybe she wants him to have that idol. I sort of think that she wants to work with him, and I don't know that it's been super explicit, and maybe I'm just creating some fan fiction here, but I think she legitimately sees a chance to work with Jay and wants to keep him as her own.
But she certainly has a better relationship with him than she has with, Ken, Jessica, David, Hannah, Adam. So yeah, I get it. It's like, okay, well, we get rid of him, and now it's just basically I'm relying on Chris and Brett. And if she's somebody who realizes that, she needs to take out Chris sometime, then having options would be, something she would require. So yeah, the fact that he voted for Jessica points to a yes, and she would be the most likely candidate. And that would go back to saying, maybe that wasn't such a bad move, because people were like, well, how can you say it was a good move? Well, guess who he doesn't have to beat anymore, guys?
Yeah, Michaela's out of the game now.
That was my whole point. Yeah, it's like, even if, like, all of this is circumstantial and there, this wasn't part of his plan, except, the way things have bounced so far, I'm not suggesting that Jay had that all figured out in some kind of beautiful mind scenario. No, what, the variable he could control that vote is, I could either get rid of a non-threat Brett and Sunday, or I could get rid of a threat in Michaela. He did. And then, figure out the rest later. Well, we're at later now. And yeah, I don't think he's going anywhere anytime soon. And now, if he's looking at who he needs to beat, it's one person easier.
Yep. All right. Hey, by the way, we should, make some predictions for next week. Oh, it's a terrible transition, but whatever. We should make some transitions or some predictions for next week.
Yeah. So, obviously I don't think it's Jay. That is a transition, but, yeah, so in the preview, we get Will looking like he's going to maybe make a move, which, furthers your point that, Jessica may not have been doomed if she was able to survive that one vote.
Right. And I think the fact that we see Will willing to make a move means this. Will's getting clipped next week.
There you go. Where there's a will, there's a way.
And to your point about Jay, I almost wonder if it will be Jay that's like, oh, really? Will sold out my info about the idol? Like, if it gets back to him? Okay, we'll take care of that situation, and we get cold-blooded killer Jay back in our lives.
Yeah, and maybe it's like a Jesus Matt situation, right? Where, like, he's the flipper that they just, well, let's just get rid of the flipper. That'll take away of a number, and we'll be on the right track. I think Zeke's going. I think Will does flip. Because it kind of feel like it's just going to be the season of just shifting sands back and forth. People seeing that, like, the the trust cluster they were in is no longer as useful for them. And it's like, now the most dangerous person is him. And if we flip over here to this side, then we can weaken that side. So, and I think, so I think it might be Zeke. I think, he's done his job. He's been a big star of the episode, but I think now he is clearly the most dangerous player. I think the fact that David doesn't have an idol makes him less dangerous than Zeke. And it gives an opportunity for Will and maybe Jay to move up a rung. Instead of being at the bottom of that alliance, help this one, weaken that one, and then see where you go from there. Maybe then Jay can flip back to his good buddy Sunday, who's been on his side this whole time.
Okay. Not a bad prediction. Hey, before we go, we should talk about something that we generally don't, and that is that we do have Amazon ads on our site until December 1st. I admit these are obnoxious, and I apologize, but on most of the posts on our site, you'll see these very large, obnoxious Amazon ads right near the bottom. The reason they're there is because until December 1st, Amazon's going to give us 12% of your purchase if you buy stuff to help pay for the site. Normally, it's like 3 to 4% or something like that. It's very low. So the fact that it's 12%, I'm like, screw it. I don't care about spending money for this hobby, but it'd be great if I could spend less money for this hobby. And if you happen to be shopping, please, if you're going to buy stuff from Amazon, just go and click on those obnoxiously large ads on our site. I think maybe it only gets 12% if you click on those. I'm not entirely positive, but to be safe, please do that.
Yeah, John thinks it's gauche to ask for money. And I will say, like, we're not going to be a site that does, crowdfunding and all of that. You've, very well put that there's probably other things in the world that need money more than we do on a little podcast here. And also, like, there's obviously, crowdfunding that has, special privileges or all that. A, you and I don't have time to do any more than we're already doing. And B, right. I don't believe this is a community that we should be charging admission for. You guys are all part of it, and we are not going to make money a gatekeeper. But it does cost. Yeah, this thing does cost. It'd be not, we're not looking to make money. Frankly, the pittance we would make in profit wouldn't be worth splitting up amongst 5 people. But if it could cost a little less, that'd be great. So yeah, if you were going to do it anyway, this would be the best time to help us out.
And Andy and I both ordered new mics recently, so maybe we'll sound like less garbage soon. So you could feel like you're helping the show.
Yeah, only one of our kids broke it, but yes, we have matching microphones. It's so cute. So yeah, you can find those links on our website, which is at www.purplerockpodcast.com.
And if you want to follow us on Twitter, the show is at Purple Rock Pod. I'm at Purple Rock John.
I'm at Purple Rock Andy. Obviously, you can subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play. And you can email us at purplerockpodcast@gmail.com. And I think I figured out, even if it's not completely generationally specific, the best song to end this one on.
Ooh.
1, 2, 3, 4.